And there are actually no content out there to provide these details. It doesn't matter which airport, you need to have a negative COVID test. Wear their masks religiously. Like, social distancing is not as good as England. So in this sense, Iran was much safer and much better. Hello everyone and welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is the journey where your journey starts. My name is Ali Reza, and in this video I just want to talk about traveling to Iran during COVID crisis. I understand that as soon as I landed in this country due to some really emergency family and work problems that I had, I received tons of messages on social media, especially on Instagram, saying, is it safe there? Can we travel there? There are many different Iranians or non-Iranians outside Iran which are willing to travel, but they're not sure if it's safe or how are the circumstances. And there are actually no content out there to provide these details. That's why I just decided to make this video about my trip and give my honest opinion about different things that I've observed for the past week in this country. I hope you find this useful. So I was born and raised in London my whole life, and I was in London since the start of the COVID crisis. And I do want to elaborate on the differences between Iran and England. So I understand there are different elements into each subject, and I will try my best to talk about them separately. The first thing is airport. In the UK and in Iran, you have to wear a mask. Whether you want to get into the airport or you're a passenger or you're a pilot, it doesn't matter. Everyone should wear a mask. And this is very important when you want to get into some of the airlines. Some of them do not care as much, but some really do. And if you want to get out of the country from England, you don't need to have a test. And if you want to get inside the country, you also don't need a test, which this is not the case in Iran. If you want to enter the country of Iran, it doesn't matter which airport, you need to have a negative COVID test. And if you don't have it, they've got a lab just right in the airport. You do immediately a test and you have to self-quarantine at least for 48 hours to get your results. And I understand in the UK, they have some regulations saying you have to self-quarantine or self-isolate for at least 2 weeks if you come from certain countries such as Iran, such as Spain, such as Italy. So if I want to say the winner in terms of airports between Iran and England, I would say Iran did a better job. In fact, they had much more system in place in the airports to control the traffic, control the social distancing and wearing masks and the test results, etc. The second thing is about mask. So when you come to Iran, I would tell you this, that in my experience for the past week, I think around 95% of the people wear their masks religiously, like they don't even put it down or anything. They are seriously wearing it. And in UK, in my opinion, it's less than 30%. So in terms of wearing a mask or face covering, Iran definitely wins and beats England. In terms of social distancing, Iran is not as good as UK. UK has definitely done a better job in terms of having some regulations or some queues for getting into shops or banks or different places. Social distancing is not as good as England in this country, in Iran. But again, there are some places that you see there are signs, but it's not as effective or as serious as it is in the UK. So in terms of social distancing, definitely United Kingdom wins, the same way that Iran is much better in terms of masks and face coverings. UK is much better in terms of social distancing. In terms of schools and public places such as banks or shopping centers, etc., I think they are kind of equal because the schools here are pretty much all of them online. The other part is eating out or fun activities. Again, on that matter, because labor is much cheaper in this country, in Iran, they can afford to have more people in place and take more care of hygiene or disinfecting or sanitizing or taking care of the different hygiene materials in the places such as restaurants, cafes or outdoor activities. So in this sense, Iran was much safer and much better for work and for business. So if you are traveling to work, and if you are a person who you work in an industry that you can't really work from home, such as hospitality or tourism or many different things, and you need to travel to office, this is much safer in the UK. In here, you have to use public transport, whether it's the taxi, which is the lines, or whether it's train, or whether it's the bus or anything. which is not as empty as in the UK, and because more people are back to work here than in the UK. And in UK, because many are working from home, they can manage the traffic much better. So in this sense, UK wins by far. And lastly, about test centers. So I did COVID test in Iran and I did in UK. In the UK, you do your own test and they just observe you. Whereas in here, all the nurses do the job because you may not get the results you were looking for. But overall, if I just want to judge in one statement, I can tell you this. In terms of culturalizing and people of a country, Iran is doing much better job. People in here are much appreciating the work that the healthcare workers and the rest of the people are doing, and they are really taking care of themselves and others. So they really put in the measures. But in the UK, the better thing is the government. So the government of the UK has done much better job in terms of holding the traffic, in terms of organizing the people, in terms of holding the hospital care centers, shopping centers, or even supermarkets. You see there are so many signs about social distancing, about different ways, and there are many things in terms of compulsory activities and compulsory measurements that are taking place in the UK, which you don't see them in Iran. So in terms of people, I think Iranians are doing better than the British people. But in terms of government, the Britain is doing much better than Iran. Once you get to Iran, if you don't have a test, you will get a test for 230 tomans, which is around £7-8. You get the results within 24 hours up to 48 hours. And if you are positive, you have to self-isolate for at least 2 weeks. And if you're not, then you can go back to your normal routine in this country. But in the UK, again, the rules are different. This is just my conclusion. I hope this information finds you well. And lastly, I hope wherever you are and whatever you're planning to, I hope you stay safe and protect everyone, and especially the healthcare workers that are working day and night to protect us.